Forecast coming up. Listen to this. The share of high school seniors across the country who have a driver's license dropped from 85% back in 1996 to a record low of just 72% in recent years.
Yep, our friend Dr. Wes is a Lawrence family psychologist who has seen this trend and is asked by parents how to get kids motivated. Before we get to you, Doctor, do you remember when you were a senior in high school? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh,
I
remember the day after the day of my birthday.
Yeah. I'd like him. I was so excited about the possibility of getting a driver's license and being able to drive myself. Dr. West, what do you think what accounts for this trend in teens' disinterest in driving?
Well, there's 2 or 3 things that have come into play, and some of them are obvious and some of them aren't. So one of them is the internet, video games, social media. They just have more adventure staying at home than we used to when we went out in the world. There wasn't that much fun to do at our houses, but there was out there. So driving was the key to that.
Okay,
the other one is like Uber and Lyft, these ride-sharing programs. Kids have somewhat more mobility than they used to have. They just, hit their app and a car shows up. So that idea for the future is something kids are already embracing.
Are there certain teens who are more reluctant than others?
Yes, you still have the excited teens like we were when we were 14 or 15.
That's my daughter.
Yeah.
She can't wait.
Yeah, I showed up at the driver's license bureau and had forgotten my birth certificate, and I thought my world was coming to an end.
Exactly.
But the kids who have the hardest time are in roughly 2 groups. One of them is the kids who lean to the anxious side, whether they're diagnosable or not. They just tend to be a little bit anxious. The other kids that have a hard time are the ADD kids, because for both of them, driving is a little more daunting than it is for us.
Interesting. Do you think driving is important for teens?
Yeah, until the self-driving car comes, which is not very far away, and I have kids who think they're going to wait, for it to appear. But until that shows up, kids, unless you live in a large city like Chicago or New York or San Francisco that have really integrated public transportation systems, you got to still be able to drive. And in the metro, as we see the traffic report every day, driving's pretty important. So kids need that for college, for work, and really a lot of ways to integrate themselves into society.
So for parents at home who have a child who is not interested in driving, what can they do to encourage them?
Well, you can incentivize it. I really think you sometimes, have to put some money on the table or some kind of a reward on the table. And then you want to do, particularly the anxious kids, you want to start early. Try to get in there as soon as possible and be doing systematic desensitization where you do small little steps over the course of months and months and months. For the ADD leaning kids, sometimes it's better to wait because their cognitive maturity isn't as great until later on in their later teens. Do the same thing then with them, put a lot of time in and do it way before driver's ed. Driver's ed is actually really kind of daunting for kids, and we like to see them use the private schools where it's just one-to-one driver to student, and then after that they can go take their test and drive, trying to make this less scary for the anxious kids and a little more focused for the ADD leaners.
Yeah, well, we follow up on that. Driver's ed used to be a class that you would take in high schools. It was a part of the curriculum, and you were there with your classmates. So
during the day.
During the day. Now, wouldn't that take the edge off of maybe some of the dauntingness of what you're describing here?
The hard part for the reluctant kids is they're with a peer group who's sitting in the back seat, staring at them in the front seat, driving, and they bump the curb or something, which is like 100% likely. And everybody giggles in the back, and so that just makes it worse. So the one-to-one driver experience for those kids is a lot easier, and we still really recommend parents be the ones to start working with kids. And take a Valium or whatever before, whatever it takes.
You need your full attention, trust me.
But try to be relaxed. If you sometimes we have anxious kids with anxious parents, and boy, there's a recipe for doom because the parent gasps or screams or whatever. It's a red light, and they're a block away, and the kid just breaks into tears. And so trying to go a little easier, and I actually recommend people start on driving on highways, believe it or not, but only those 4-lane highways. Like I like the one between the Legends and Tonganoxie because there's no on-ramps, but you can just sit in your lane And if you get those stickers from Amazon that you put on the car that say student driver, people will actually be kind of nice to you. They understand. And so you can sit over there and putter along at 40 miles an hour in the right lane, and everybody can pass you because they know it's a student driver. And that's a less daunting
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to order. I didn't realize
they're
they
online.
had
You can get them.
stickers.
They're a magnetic thing, and you can
Okay,
put them on and
perfect.
off. Yeah. And if you're having a hard day, you put it on the car, and people will be nice to you. Why not?
They're like, you're an old student,
That is
lady.
gold right there.
Thank
Why
you,
not?
Dr.
Oh, great to
West.
see you, Dr. West. Good stuff.
See you
If
next
you'd
time.
like to contact Dr. Wes Crenshaw, you can find him on Twitter at Wes Crenshaw PhD, or you can also visit his website, drwes.com.